Those who have an ex-best friend, what happened? I, female, have chosen to end several best friendships with other women. Some insights gained with therapy helped me see that I was choosing female friends who needed a lot of emotional help, support, but were not willing to take responsibility for their part in continuing to make decisions that perpetuated what was wrong with their lives or made them unhappy. I was a fixer, and I felt reinforced as worthy of love when I was playing the supportive best friend role, but it wasn't good for my mental health and the support was not reciprocated. Loyalty is great and all, but you can't continue to be friends with people who are committed to being miserable. Not healthy for anyone. To add a little more context that may resonate for folks in similar situations, my issue was that my model for non-romantic female love came from a mother who gave me everything she could emotionally, but not without strings attached. There was an expectation of who I should grow up to be, and unfortunately for my mom, I grew into someone way cooler. I ended up being a moderately successful young woman. I'm still young at 33, right? But only because I've seen the same therapist for 11 years who helped me understand that I was choosing friends whose issues mirrored what I had experienced, most notably being rejected by men because I hated myself and had no backbone. I felt like if I could just help these girls remember how strong they are, they would be so much better off. But then I ended up treating my friends in a similar way to how my mom treated me. How I fixed it and fixed myself, spent a lot of time alone, made small choices to challenge myself that added up over time. Eventually, I gave myself enough evidence that I was actually really great and didn't need to hate myself, carry shame, overextend myself, or accept subpar relationships, romantic and otherwise. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, though. I still struggle to maintain female friendships and trust women, or open myself up to them at all. I have to be pretty vigilant about analyzing my friendships and how I show up in them. And sometimes it's exhausting and just don't want to do it, so I have acquaintances and friends for the activities I like, but not a core set of friends. It's a journey. Cheers. Wow, she's basically a superhero with a therapist cape. Story 2. One in particular called me her best friend, and we have known each other for several decades. I've always been there for key moments of her and her 4 kids' lives, both in person, in spirit, and financially with gifts. I'm also the person she would call to emotionally vent about things. Over time, I would dread her calls because I didn't have the emotional energy to deal with her offloading onto me. I was in a few situations where I witnessed what happened and then saw her twist the story when telling it to other people. I realized a pattern and that a lot of the situations she was venting to me about may be exaggerated or self-inflicted. Whenever I would have something I wanted to talk through, it was cut off swiftly with a comment that turned the conversation back to her because I don't have kids and she has 4. In her mind, I wasn't able to have problems and nothing was significant because I don't have kids. I existed to support her and she justified this because she has kids and I don't. I took my birthday off Facebook a while ago and she hasn't wished me a happy birthday in almost 3 years now. There were definitely good moments. I love her and I'm mourning this friendship, but it was not healthy for me any longer. Story 3. I come from the other side. The friend I eventually gave up on was the fixer. He really helped me when I was at my most desperate life point, and I will always be grateful for that, really. I can genuinely say that if he hadn't bailed me out when he did, there was a non-zero chance that I might be gone right now. And then I took the help he gave me and I cleaned up. Took community college coursework, got into grad school, worked my back off, held down jobs, saved a ton of money in advance of grad school. And as soon as I got stable, it's like he stopped caring if I lived or passed away. I have tried reciprocating. Every time I've tried to make plans with him, he either flakes or straight up stands me up. The people he chooses to be around now are the sort you would describe, happy to be 24/7 self-inflicted emergency machines. Never interested in making smart life choices and very content to just drift along causing drama after drama for the attention it gets from people like former friends. It's sad because I am big on loyalty and gratitude, and while I will always be grateful, I am prone to depression. I can't just allow myself to be completely disrespected and discarded constantly because I refuse to be a big enough self-perpetuating hot mess to really hold his interest. Story 4. A dude from our group of friends went after my ex-GF 3 weeks ago after we broke up. The dude literally invited me to functions so he could get closer to my ex. Total schmuck. We are grown adults, not kids. A day after, my best friend proceeds to invite this guy to his birthday party and tells me to stop being a wuss and to go over girls to get over it. I didn't go to the party for obvious reasons. My best friend was mad and didn't understand why I decided not to go. That's when I realized that we just didn't share the same values anymore. I decided to cut ties with him and this entire group of good old high school buddies. This was 2 years ago. I don't know if this is a coincidence, but since then, I've met the woman of my dreams, got a really good job, moved into a dream house with said girl, and my life has never been more stable and happy. Story 5. I've posted about him before. He was also my neighbor, and he's a dad of 2 special needs kids, ostensibly separated from his wife, who has a substance problem. I tried helping him out. Eventually, his wife came back into his life and got him back on substance too. It came to a head when he broke into my house and stole money from me, then harmed me when I confronted him about this. That completely destroyed our friendship, and it really hurt. I later got my revenge, unintentionally, courtesy Reddit land. I got a lot of sympathetic comments and a PM actually concerned about those kids. I was strongly urged to contact CPS. Actually, at first, despite the fact that I was in the middle of the situation, I think I was blinded by a lot of things and I didn't understand the gravity of it all. Plus, I was a little concerned that my call could be considered vengeful. But I did call and I spoke with a caseworker. While they couldn't tell me everything, obviously, apparently CPS was aware of certain things but couldn't prove it. Also, the mother actually lost custody of the kids herself because of the substances. And the only reason my friend was allowed to have custody of the kids is because he lied and said they were separated. But until she completed rehab, she had a no-contact order against them. I didn't know that. My friend just told me she was going to rehab and maybe they could get back together once she got clean. But it was my call and info I gave that, again, even accidentally, because I didn't know some of this, confirmed her presence back in the home and busted my friend for lying. That was enough for CPS to finally take action and remove those kids from the home, and he lost custody of them too because of the lying. But those kids are now in a much better home and getting the help they needed and weren't getting before. I never would have made that call if it wasn't for Reddit. I guess I didn't understand the full extent of this, but other users did. So people who don't know these kids actually help them out more than they'll ever know. Plus, I won't deny it, it was funny as hell knowing my friend for the first time ever was held accountable for his lies. Story 6. I had a crush on her when we met. I chased her for 2 years with the intention of dating her. The entire time we were super compatible, super close, and honestly seemed like there wasn't a good reason not to date, so I held on. Eventually it clicked that I was happy with her as my best friend and she continued to not want to date me, so I accepted it and it was fine. A couple years later, I'm in a relationship and I introduced the two. They end up being good friends and eventually each other's support person. This led to them talking about our relationship more than me and my girlfriend, where my girlfriend made me sound like an awful person. When she broke up with me, my best friend took her side and went with her, effectively removing both from my life. Another couple years went by, the friend reconnected to pay off some debts, and we talked and became friends again. We talked about the girlfriend situation. We realized we both got played and manipulated, and in the last year or so, we've become close again. She's not my best friend, and I'm not hers, but with the roller coaster we've been through, we know we care about each other and we can be in each other's lives again. Well, that's one way to lose 2 birds with 1 stone. Story 7. In 8th grade, I had a crush on this girl who seemed to like me back. I asked her out on a date and we went to the park down the road after school. We dated for 8 months before she broke it off with me 3 months before school ended because her dad had recently passed. Well, about 2 weeks later, she came crying to me and said that Charlie, childhood best friend who I had known since we were babies, had cornered her in the staff bathroom. She had witnesses saying that Charlie had locked the door, and because the janitor was out, it was a very small school, there was nobody that could unlock the door minus the principal who was in a district meeting at the time. I was filled with rage. I went down to the lunchroom and found Charlie and proceeded to beat the brakes off of him until the only male staff member who could get me off of him ran in. I remember seeing Charlie as I was dragged out of there. I was expelled almost immediately. When my ex's mom and stepdad, who was a lawyer, heard about my expulsion, they stormed into the office threatening lawsuits if I was expelled and had compelled the witnesses who saw it to vouch for me. Because of them, they ended up getting the punishment lessened to 3-day suspension. After Charlie came back from the hospital, he was thrown out of school. I graduated high school in 2021, and last I heard, Charlie ended up moving to Canada with his uncle. As for my ex, I still talk to her every day. She came out a while ago and is in a committed relationship now. Story 8. It's a very long story, but I will try and make it as short as possible. We're cousins. She's 4 years older. We were always close, especially when she got married 10 years ago. She became so close to me. We talked all day and texted. She was on bed rest all her pregnancies, and she was admitted at the hospital I used to work in. I used to visit her before and after my shift and weekends. Hell broke loose 2020 out of nowhere. We were on very good terms. My sis got engaged. She's not close to my sis at all. They don't even have each other's phone number. She never texted her, even a congrats or even through me, like, hey, congrats to your sis, during when we were very restricted on how much guests we were allowed to have, so to my sis party, she was only allowed 20 total. She did not invite this cousin. They are not close. She invited a couple of her friends. One of them is acquaintance to this cousin, not even friends, and she knows them through us. When she knew hell broke loose, she had a mental breakdown that we disrespected her and that we choose strangers over her, that she wasn't even going to attend, but why wasn't she invited? A family member called me to tell my cousin and ex-best friend that she was very upset with me, and she was on the phone with her for 3 hours crying as she felt you are her friend. I texted the cousin, "Is everything okay? Are you upset by something?" She was so rude. "Why will you say that? What did I do to you? Did something happen to make me upset?" And since then, we don't talk. I saw her last year when her sister gave birth and invited us to see the baby. I walked up to this cousin to greet her. She walked by me fast as I had my hands ready to greet her. So much anger and hate towards me, and for what? Story 9. I had a friend group online with about 6 core members, including myself. During one of our gaming sessions, I noticed one of my buddies wasn't replying to my callouts or banter. After the night, I sent him a message to ask if everything was okay, and that is when I found out he blocked me. I checked other platforms, and sure enough, he removed and blocked me on those as well, and turns out he even muted me in chat. I reached out to 2 of my other friends, best friend and another buddy in the group about it, and saw if they had any idea what was going on. They looked into it a bit and got an answer of, "I just feel we outgrew each other." That is as far as he would go on the matter and just wanted to ignore everything. My buds I talked to about it basically shrugged and went, "Nothing you can do, let's just move past it." Well, after a few weeks of this, I had enough. I felt terrible, joining chat and having awkward conversations with people needing to act as a go-between when communication was needed, being excluded from games because a problem buddy basically created a me or him situation, and even missing out on multi-year traditions we've been doing. I pulled the same 2 buds aside and told them I can't act like nothing's wrong, and I got the same answer. He isn't complaining about it, so why do you have to? After that, I left the server and invited everyone outside the problem friend to a new one. I told them, "I'm not asking you to leave his server, I just obviously am not welcome there anymore. If you want to chat or hang out, I'll be here." That really upset one of the 2 buds I was talking to, my best friend, and he lashed out about it. We argued for a bit, and it ended up with him doing the same thing as the problem buddy. About a month later, he apologized, and we made up. At this point, however, I realized I was giving these people too much energy and pulled back from friends. I obviously cared more about them than they did about me. Well, fast forward 2 years later, and the problem buddy was at it again, causing issues with the other buddy I was talking with. Long story short, that I don't even know all of, but basically ended up with the same outcome. Problem buddy was the source of these issues, 100%. I take some responsibility with our beef, and the other buddy was very hurt by his actions. At this point, of that original 6 people in that friend group, only 2 remained, problem buddy and best friend. Other buddy actually reached out to me and apologized for what happened before. He now understood how hard problem buddy made things and that I was mistreated. We fully made up and have been hanging out way more often. I can't speak for other buddies, I haven't brought it up to him, but the way my best friend is still spending a ton of time with problem buddy is kind of hurtful. Like he is just ignoring everything he's doing and actually saying we are just being overly dramatic about things. At this point, I don't think I can call him my best friend anymore. We hardly hang out anymore. He actively ignored my feelings and still hasn't really apologized for what he did 2 years ago. Story 10. It was unfortunate, honestly. I was in a complicated situation with an ex-roommate when I moved into the big city. My best friend was there and she offered me a place to crash while looking for a new place. It was for about a month. I didn't realize it then, but the part-time bartending on top of the full-time job had me drinking more on my time off. I now know in hindsight it was from the psychological damage my ex-roommate caused. I think she was also going through depression too. We spoke about it. It helped her secure a job, traveled with her for errands, asked her partner for tips on how to help her. I stopped drinking as well. The tip of the iceberg was when I met someone who checked all the boxes. We all hung out, had fun, etc. Soon enough, the person asked if I wanted to save my commute and stay with him in the city near my work and help me secure a place closer. A big screaming yes for me, as splitting the rent would have us both swimming in savings. We were on the money hustle train. I excitedly relaxed at a nearby park, suntan a little, and shared the news with my best friend. And I get a breakup text from my best friend. She wasn't happy. Out of nowhere, a bunch of name-calling, being called irresponsible, and how I'm psychologically manipulative and all I do is show off and condescend. My heart shattered here because she was my one and she had never voiced these concerns to me, and I would rather be humbled than defensive. She attacked me for jumping on men, accusing me of flirting with her partner, which had my face contort like dough in a stand mixer. I didn't even have a chance to ask anything as she cut it clean. Life went on, but man, was I ever sad. I eventually moved back home because I'm a nature gal and the city was a bit too much for me. Did some therapy for other reasons, and it dawned on me her projections since childhood and could not move on. I got to realize her behaviors that were in fact insanely manipulative on me, but she projected and used me as the spitting post. I hope she's healed now, and it was the best decision she could have made because I would have been under her thumb for years longer and a very worn out doormat. Story 11. While they screamed at me to leave them alone and get out of their life when we were on a school trip in senior year of high school, so kind of that, found out years later that they had borderline personality disorder on top of the severe treatment-resistant depression that I did know about. I found out about this when they asked if I would be willing to visit while they were in the hospital after their 4th attempt, and I happened to be in town visiting my parents. Their mother had the audacity to tell me she thought I knew all along. She thought I knew since we were 8 years old. How in the actual hell was I, a child, supposed to know what was wrong with my best friend? Screw you, Sue. You're probably part of the problem. Luckily, after seeing my former friend that day, we're back on friendly speaking terms when we run into each other, and we get along just like we used to. Over the last couple of years, they've finally been able to come out as trans and non-binary, and this year they were able to move out into an independent living community. I'm probably never going to see them again because of that move, but I'm still so proud of them for being here and trying their best. However, when I do look at their Facebook posts, I'm able to see that I can't ever really be close to them again unless some drastic changes happen. They're still too unstable for where I am with my own mental health situation. And though it hurts to think about it, I'm ultimately okay being a sideline cheerleader for them. Also, I just remembered why my other best friend stopped being my best friend. Me, I'm the problem. We were both depressed and dealing with things, and I was so caught up in my own downward spiral that I forgot how to be there for her. I stopped emotionally showing up and only talked, no listening. I've reached out several times over the years and we still get along in person, but she never reaches out to me first. I finally accepted that she probably doesn't want to be friends anymore because of how I used to be. I sent her one last message a few months ago saying I missed her and would love to get lunch sometime, just let me know. You know, the usual balls in your court crap. She never responded or even read it. I realized I don't even know if that's still her phone number or not. So yeah, in one case, the friend cut me out themselves. In the other, I got ghosted due to my own selfishness, and I deserved it. Story 12. We had just shy of 10 years of friendship with never a single fight. In the last 2 years, this included daily multi-hour emotional support calls for months. After her engagement to a narcissist dissolved, she has extreme codependency issues, and I felt awful that she was suffering so much after 7 years with the same man. Soon after, she then planned a trip to Italy with me and another girl. For weeks, I was planning, taking time off from work, and arranging people to care for my partially disabled mother. A week or two before we were set to go, she then told me she couldn't go anymore because of work. 2 weeks after that, she then soft-launched her still married to someone else boyfriend on Instagram, together with her and our other friend in Italy on the same trip she told me she canceled. I tried to be diplomatic, but then she couldn't even call me on the first-year anniversary of my father's passing. After telling me she would the night before, I blocked her. Turns out that it wasn't just her ex that was a toxic, dishonest narcissist. And if you're enjoying the video relating to at least one of the stories so far, please don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos just like this. Story 13. My friend was someone I met in junior high after moving to a new town. By virtue of being homeschooled, he was a social outcast, but we both liked video games, and that really ended up being the entire basis of anything we had in common. I didn't have many other options for friends as I myself was also a social outcast, but I did my best to retain contact into adulthood. Going out of my way to contact him and try to share things with him, creating events that I invited him to, inviting myself over to his place to hang out sometimes. He never once referred to me as his best friend and was very clear that his preference would have been to spend time with his buddy he grew up with before he moved to the town where I met him. Eventually, he blamed me for his depression and bad habits because I abandoned him and left him all alone when I lived away to go to college while he sat on his parents' couch smoking, drinking, and playing video games. I was able to overcome that and continued to try to treat him as a brother. I let him live with me and my wife for very cheap rent while he was paid to go to trade school. Then one day, he got onto antidepressants prescribed by a doctor, and one of the first things he did once they started to have positive effects was to tell me that he was sick of my arrogance, and then proceeded to use my divorce as an excuse for his own perpetration of emotional cruelty on his then-girlfriend. He eventually told me to get off after I asked him for help with money. Me being a perennial uni student and him dropping out of basic training and getting a trade resulted in him being financially ahead of where I was at the time. I cried really hard and haven't talked to him since. Story 14. I have two. The first one chose to go see her boyfriend. They just started dating at a high school graduation where he was leading the band, instead of my gender reveal and later on at a baby shower. I was there with her throughout her pregnancy, when her baby daddy left her baby shower, etc. And she couldn't be there for me as well because she was too busy chasing a dude she just met on Tinder. My other one would forget about me when she invited me over to her family's parties. She had another friend that came as well, and once she came, you were forgotten about. She invited me over for a 4th of July party, and when I got there, she didn't even recognize I was there until hours later around midnight. I got there between 3 and 4, and she said, "Where have you been all day? Did you just get here?" Girl, no, I've been here literally all day by this fire. Any friend of hers was there, and I was shoved aside. I left after that and went home. Another reason is because my little sister stole her from me as well. My little sister basically took over my identity when I moved away and told my friends lies about me, and the only friend that believed her was her. The other best friends knew better. Story 15. He was fat, so fat that his health was crap, knee problem, back problems, respiratory problems, and others. He always goes to fast foods perhaps twice or 3 times a week, spending big amounts of money. One day I told him that he might be careful about his health. One day he will not be able to get out of his bed. He didn't care and injured me. Okay, why not? One other day, his cousin, a friend too, been hired in a Ponzi pyramid scheme. I told to the cousin to go away from that. This is a bad things. He won't. Continue to laughing about me with my best friend. It's always like that, laughing about something I do wrong, a physic particularity. His cousin needs money for his bad habits. I told him I didn't want to buy his meds. The Ponzi pyramid scheme was about slimming pills. He was angry, and my best friend too. They laughed at me one more time. I said that was enough and blocked them, and many times I got pestered by them. Always they laugh about me. I decided to stop. Now I'm a clever man. I won't let this happen again. Story 16. I was best friends with this guy for 12 years. In the aftermath of some really hard times hit him after high school, he gave up on doing anything with his life, and now only ever contacts me when he needs money. I used to happily help him out because that's what good friends do. But when I saw the pattern of him being comfortable just living off the support of other people and spending all the money he does to get PS2 games instead of trying to improve his situation, I gradually started cutting contact. I sincerely hope he turns it around because he's a good guy at heart. I just don't have anything left to give him. I've given him job offers, offered reliable transportation, bought him groceries, helped him manage his finances, and tried to find him better places to live than his grandmother's. I'd be okay with helping him do these things, but I won't do them for him. He's almost 30 and I have my own responsibility to manage. I can't handle him as well. Story 17. I woke up to how toxic she was. She demanded my attention, and if I dared take too long to respond, she'd get mad. She'd demand I would drop everything to support her when she was having a rough time. But the second I was going through something, she would just say, "Oh, that is awful, I'm sorry," and then go back to her own thing. I put up with her toxicity and gaslighting for way too long. One time, she threw a fit because I hadn't told her about the guy I had a crush on once. He and I became a couple. I looked back through the texts and saw that I had. This happened a few times. I don't know if she just smoked too much to actually remember or if she was actively gaslighting me. Final straw was when I moved away to go to grad school and was struggling with the change, the lack of a local support system, and my relationship now being long distance. Then one day, I finally said how much I was struggling, and she said, "Well, at least you have a boyfriend." After that, I left her on read for a couple of days before she messaged me saying that she was sorry but she was going through something. The same excuse she always had for treating me like crap. I laid it into her, writing her a novel of how done I was and how she treated me like trash for years. Her only response was, "You should have told me this was bugging you." Last thing I said of any meaning was, I shouldn't have to tell my best friend to not treat me like trash. After that, we didn't talk for a while outside of a quick birthday message I sent her. I realized how much happier I was without her and her drama. I wasn't dreading my phone notifications. When I figured that out, I blocked her. She then periodically started sending messages to my mom on Facebook trying to manipulate me through her to get back in contact. She divulged a major secret to my mom, trying to get her to be mad at me, which didn't work because my mom is chill. She claimed she wanted to send me some books that she had borrowed from me, trying to get my address, to which my mom just said, "You can send them here and I'll make sure she gets them." Seriously, shout out to my mom for being the best. I found out she got arrested for trying to run over someone with her car after they called her rude for shoving them out of the way at the post office. Didn't serve time, which is messed up, but okay. Last I knew, she had found Jesus, which I think is code for figured out that people at church can't get tired of her and kick her out of their lives. She had a lot of demons and trauma, so I hope she's dealing with those, but I doubt it. For all the complaining she did about people leaving her alone or ghosting her, she never quite managed to figure out that she was the common denominator in the equation. Story 18. Laura was my best friend in junior high school and high school. We lost touch during our college years, even though I tried my best to keep in contact. I went on to live a pretty interesting life while she dropped out of ODU and waitressed. She and her parents came to my father's memorial service, but she would barely speak to me. Her parents even came to my modern dance performance and wedding, but she didn't. At my wedding reception, her mom told me that Laura has bad values and that she always admired me for being tolerant and persistent. I wasn't really sure what she meant. 16 years ago, her father called me and asked me to contact Laura because she was suffering and they had already paid for her rehab once and couldn't afford to do it again. They gave me her number and I called her and we made plans for me to visit her, but then my young children all came down with the flu. I called her to reschedule and she told me that she was glad I wasn't coming because I think Jimmy, her BF, would have liked you more than me. Laura passed away months later. At the age of 50, my sister, a mutual friend, and I went to her memorial service, which was held away from all of us. I kept a picture of us on my nightstand for years. I miss her every day. There was a huge walk in the cemetery that we walked through to her house after school. We would lie on it and sing and eat the junk food we got at the deli on our way. She loved surfing and we would go to Gilgo Beach on Long Island multiple times over multiple summers to surf when we were in high school. I personally suspect that something awful happened to her at ODU that crushed her spirit. Story 19. He passed away. His mother reached out to let me know that he had tumors all over his body and was in a coma. She ended herself a year or so after his passing. I really feel terrible for his sisters. Nobody deserves that. Our relationship never soured. It spread apart after years. I moved away, got out of the BS. Compared to him, I was lukewarm. He was in and out of jail and recovery programs, climbing the bad habit ladder year after year. He would call after being clean and being set free. Told him if he could show me 6 months, he can come stay with me and we'll get him started. Never made it that long. Substance and the psychosis that comes from it are my last memories of him. In fact, the final time he was arrested, it wasn't specifically for substances. He was spiked, but he broke into a government facility searching for the women being taken. He kept on this even after he was clean whilst in jail. My other friend was locked up with him and he tried to fight him for laughing at him when he explained his whole theory. Either way, in his time, he was one of the funniest, smartest, charismatic, and before he turned, genuinely good people anyone could meet. Everybody loved him until he messed them over on a long enough timeline. For some reason, he never even asked me for money. He may have robbed my house once, but swore on everything it wasn't him. Probably was. I like to think he respected me more, even if it's not true. I miss you, Wesley. Hoping you're turning out straight dudes in heaven instead of jail and rehab. Story 20. When we were alone, we'd just be rude to each other as banter, and it was escalating to the point where we were clearly trying to upset each other. We both only wanted to talk about ourselves and had no interest in what the other was saying. When we were with friends, we were even worse because it would spread out to them with us trying to outdo each other's rudeness. I remember we had a safe word agreed in our group for when people were going too far. This should never be necessary in a friend group. And we took it as a challenge to try and reach that point with our friends and each other. We were 18 at the time for context, but we still should have known better. Eventually, after a heated game of Rocket League, of all things, we decided to just go our separate ways and we never spoke again. 5-minute conversation. I remember it was basically, hey, we don't even like each other. Why do we still talk to each other? As far as I'm aware, he never spoke to any of our mutual friends ever again either. As soon as he was gone, I stopped being a prick to all of our mutuals, as I only ever seemed to do it when he was around. We made each other worse people. And to be honest, I think I got off lightly as everyone just kind of acted like I wasn't also a prick. I should have been held responsible for my actions too, really. I guess the difference was he was always a prick with them, whereas I was only like that when he was around. This was like 8 years ago now. I sometimes wonder how he's doing, but also I don't care. And if you liked any of these stories, here's more for you. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. I'll catch you in that video.